back home from another sort of family visit for a few days. I had a sort of daunting task of getting groceries on my way back, which has been more and more difficult as of late. I think I've talked about getting groceries for the past year or so, on and off in previous videos. It feels like it gets more and more difficult to do it, especially if there isn't too much planning involved in meals, and so that's been a bit tricky. I also needed to get a fleece for myself as well, and just making decisions, going into shops, being overwhelmed with lots of different items and not knowing, almost similar to groceries, not quite knowing what I want, but sort of knowing that having that sense that I'm actually, this perhaps is needed. So I kind of managed to go to a few different shops and try on things, and that was certainly stressful to do. I tried to go with my initial instinct, my initial first instinct when putting on some clothes, whether if something stood out to me, like the fabric wasn't nice or was slightly too tight, I tried to just take what I could from first impressions and not sort of overthink it. And there was one fleece that felt okay, and I just didn't have the energy to walk all the way back to that shop. It wasn't sort of located with the others, so I had it in the back of my mind to sort of order it online, and I just did that now, and I ended up ordering 3 types of the same fleece. I got 2 in black and 1 in, it's like a navy blue, and it was really difficult. I just couldn't figure out how many I needed. I think 2 would have been a sensible number, but then there was an offer for, if you spend this much, then we'll give you a percentage off, and I got kind of roped into that, and then I just ended up buying the fleeces. In the end, it was just, I think I was here for like 5 or 10 minutes trying to figure out, should I get 2 or 3, and it was just really difficult to make that decision. And it's strange because I think this was about many years ago, probably, I think it was 2019. I remember a time, perhaps I did it before, where I consciously bought the same clothes. Back in those days, I used to become more comfortable in like shell suit bottoms, so almost like jogging bottoms, and I bought the same fleece, exactly the same, two types of that fleece, and then I think I bought another one, and then I had my hiking boots, and then that would be like what I'd wear every day. And now it feels like I've had time in the past year or two trying to, buying different clothes, especially with my mood changes, when I think, I want to sort of wear different clothes. I feel like it's almost like the normal thing to do, and now I've kind of full circled a bit back now, thinking things are more difficult, and it would just be, and perhaps I can still try and wear different clothes, but perhaps on days when it's really difficult, I have almost like a go-to now. The fleeces I bought, like those 6 or 7 years ago, they're kind of worn down now, so as I was sort of just buying them now, I thought, some of, that can also replace the ones I already have. So yeah, I'm not sure how I feel, whether it's a healthy thing to do. I know it will take off pressure, I guess, as well. And I'm not sure if these, I tried to get something a bit thicker for the colder weather, but then I just got in a weird thought process of, oh, how thick are the fleeces? How warm would it keep me? Would it be okay for winter? Would it be too warm for the summer? And I guess I wanted a magic fleece I could just wear all year round, and I wouldn't get too hot or too cold in it, which I guess doesn't exist really. So yeah, I'll see how I get on with these. Yeah, I think I've talked a little bit about clothes before, and maybe I guess the root of that's decision making and being overwhelmed with lots of selection, and just that process of, which can seem, used to be seamless, to sort of go through a mental checklist of, or a mental process of sort of like having a piece of clothing and think, oh no, that's not what I want, or that doesn't really fit in with other things I have, or it's not practical, or those things kind of used to happen seamlessly, and now it's just a real difficulty. It's a really arduous process to sort of make a decision and evaluate something. Yeah. I ended up having some pizza today, and it was, I guess, some comfort food. And I'm just aware of my health, and it was a bit of an easy go-to today to get that for today as well. Just, I was a bit tired from like going to the shops and looking at the clothes, and also I only had a shopping basket, and it was like really full up. So there were several factors that was causing me stress, as well as being in a sort of being in a supermarket. Even though it wasn't super busy, it was still like I wanted to kind of get out of there. So I decided to kind of go to another grocery shop tomorrow morning, just to get a few bits, like some salad and some toiletry stuff. And yeah, I'm going to try, and I feel like when I've indulged in food, especially unhealthy food, there's always often a bit of a springboard to think, okay, I need to have a healthy few days. So I'm kind of in that thought process now, thinking about meals, and I'm going to start eating porridge again every morning. I think that'll be good for me to do, and it kind of takes care of breakfast. Yeah, then I'm going to try and plan for some healthy lunches and dinners, even if it's something really simple, like different types of sandwiches. Perhaps that's usually my go-to for lunch. And then for dinner, I was thinking maybe of just finding a really simple, healthy recipe, like even a pasta recipe, or I have got some pasta sauce, so maybe a really simple way to add some veggies to that, and maybe have some protein, like some tofu or something. So I feel like I need to nail that recipe down just so I have it. So not just leave it in the air thinking, well, usually that would be okay, but now it feels like I need to be more specific to help myself with food. So it'd be really good just to have a recipe in mind. And then I can kind of fit that into some of the ingredients I already have. Yeah, maybe that's a simple way of doing it. Just sometimes I find when I have a little bit of an idea like that, I think, oh, I can just start doing loads of recipes now as well, and I get carried away, and I think, let's buy a cookbook and And for the time being, I'm like really struggling to cook. So I don't know if that's a trait for something else. Sometimes when you get an idea to do something and then you go overboard and invest in that and buy things, and then you don't even get started with it. So I thought, to take off the pressure, there's so much like recipe stuff online, so yeah, I can sort of type in the ingredients I have, and or just type in like healthy pasta recipes and then like line it up with some of the ingredients I have already. Like I bought some ready prepared tofu, like sweet chili tofu, so I've just got to put that in the oven or stir fry it for just a few minutes, so it's kind of it's kind of ready to be cooked, so that'll be easy. And I've got a jar of pasta sauce, and I've got, I think, enough pasta. So yeah, I just need to figure out the vegetables, I guess, or I may use the tofu in like a vegetable curry. So actually, yeah, I may need to figure that one out. But yeah, yeah. So maybe I'll write some stuff down and try and. I need to let go of perfection, really, but just try and maybe narrow the gap from complete sort of confusion and fragmentation around food, and have something a bit more of a specific idea of meals. Yeah, so I'll try and do that at some point. Maybe tomorrow, before I get the groceries, I can just figure out what I bought today, and then maybe write down my meals, and then have some flexibility around it as well. So it's not like a pressure to think, oh, I have to eat this then, but it could be a helpful guide to say, oh, you have these ingredients, this is the meal you had in mind, and then take it from there, perhaps. So yeah, yeah. So maybe I could use like use some handwritten notes, just of food and meals that I can have, and maybe that will help, instead of doing it all in my mind, or just maybe that'll be a bit of a support for me. I wanted to talk about coffee as well. Something it'd be good for me to mention it in counselling, but I always forget. It feels like coffee is, it can be such a help for brain fog, I find. But for me, there's such a downside to coffee as well, where I get overstimulated and my mind gets too affected by the caffeine. And I'm generally sensitive to caffeine, so it really can affect sleep as well. So like I've been having stronger coffees while visiting family, and I can sense my mind going back to a little bit how it was before in regards to things I could do. Like I could do a bit more reading, and but I could process stuff clearer. But then my sleep has just been really, really difficult. So, and there's been other sort of effects as well with the caffeine. That's not been healthy for me. So, yeah, it's just one of those things, I guess, where I think by default, here in the annex, I drink instant coffee. I've got a jar of caffeinated and a jar of decaf. So it gives me like a lot of flexibility to have one or the other, or have a little bit of the caffeinated with the decaf, and kind of mix and match, and it thankfully is not as strong as, say, like a sort of grounded coffee if I make like a French press or something like that. Yeah, so that's something I've noticed recently. And I'm always trying to find that sweet spot. Like when I wake up in the morning, I think, oh, okay, should I have caffeinated? I check the time and think whether that's possible. And usually, if it's like after like 9:30, 10 o'clock maybe, I just go more with decaf, or 2/3 decaf, 1 part caffeinated. But yeah, I'm wondering if I could maybe experiment with that as well. Like if I get my sleep, that's another thing I need to kind of figure out or get re-established with, is my sleep routine, waking up routine. And I think it was last year in the summer, or a lot of last year, where I did develop good sort of routines in the morning. I used to always sort of go to the park with a coffee, and and I do understand, probably should really acknowledge that things have gotten a lot harder, so that makes sense. I'm worried that it's going to get super like dark now, and I'll like fade into I think the video started off probably a clear picture of my face, but I'm not sure how. When it gets towards sunset, it really drops off quite quickly. And I only wanted to do a short sort of video today. Other things on my mind, just sort of getting reacquainted with being here again. I think I mentioned this last time. Just getting used to being alone and back in my own space, and I'm kind of grateful to have some sort of space as well. After being around sort of company, there's some intentions of I have been doing a little bit of reading in the last few days, more so than I have in the last month, or but nowhere near as much as I've wanted to, as I used to do. But that's something I want to keep the momentum up with, to do my reading and potentially a little bit of writing on that novel. I loaded up the novel yesterday and just sort of tried to get reacquainted with what I've written and dial back into the story. So I may try and continue that now I've started that step. So that's something as well. So maybe in the next 3 or 4 days or whatever, I can just focus on that, focus on getting some walks and exercise, so maybe a few areas that I can, depending on mood and things as well. I can still feel the caffeine going through me. I had like an instant caffeinated coffee, but I had it a bit late. I think I had it about 10:30 today. And maybe from my past caffeine, I don't know if that's had an effect on me as well. I think that's it. Maybe it's good to acknowledge that I did well in a few days. I was with company and family. I think the rest previously to that I had, the 3 or 4 days I spent here and where I kind of immersed in some Netflix and tried to grind myself, I think that really helped. I managed to communicate a little bit more about my needs during that time with the company, such as I found if somebody was on the phone in the car with me, then I'd find that really quite a lot. Like it would just be too loud, it would be too, I get drained so quickly, and I was able to communicate that, and even inside the house as well, that phone calls can be difficult for me to overhear. So often people like leave the room if they make a call, or I've left the room as well. So generally that's been, it's good to acknowledge I did well, even though there's always challenges, but I did reasonably well in that time. So that's good to acknowledge.